The haunted call. Working as a 911 operator, you get used to hearing the worst. There's a certain rhythm to the chaos, panicked voices, frantic cries, the constant pulse of adrenaline. You learn to stay calm, to be the voice of reason in someone's darkest moment. But some nights are different. Some nights, the calls stay with you long after your shift ends. It was a quiet night, the kind where you almost start to relax, to let your guard down. The calls had been routine. Minor accidents, a noise complaint, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, just after midnight, a call came through that still sends chills down my spine. 911, what's your emergency? I asked, my voice steady, professional. At first, there was only silence. I was about to repeat my question when I heard it, a whisper, barely audible, like someone was trying to speak without being heard. Please, someone's in my house. The voice was shaky, terrified. My training kicked in immediately. Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me your address? The whisper came again, just as soft, just as frightened. They're in the house. Please. I felt a surge of urgency. I typed in the address she gave me, a strange sense of unease settling in as I did. Something about her tone, the sheer terror in her voice, sent a shiver down my spine. Stay with me, ma'am. The police are on their way. Can you tell me where you are in the house? There was a pause, the line crackling with static. Then, in that same trembling whisper, I'm hiding. In the closet. I can hear them. They're getting closer. I stayed on the line, trying to reassure her, to keep her talking, but the longer I spoke to her, the more uneasy I became. Something wasn't right. The address she had given me seemed familiar, but I couldn't place it. Ma'am, stay where you are. Help is coming. Can you hear them now? Another pause. Then, they're right outside the door. Please, hurry. My heart was pounding now. I urged the police to get there faster, hoping against hope that they'd arrive in time. Finally, the officers radioed back. They were at the scene, but what they found didn't make any sense. The house was empty. No sign of the woman, no sign of an intruder, just a dark, abandoned building. Are you sure you have the right address? I asked, feeling the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Yeah, we're sure, but the place looks like it's been empty for years. There's no one here. I double-checked the address, a sinking feeling growing in the pit of my stomach. That's when it hit me, the address. I'd heard it before, years ago. The house had been the site of a brutal murder, the woman who lived there killed by an intruder in the middle of the night. The case had never been solved, and the house had been abandoned ever since. Check the phone, I told the officers, my voice barely above a whisper. She was calling from inside the house. There was a long pause, the crackle of the radio the only sound. Then, we found a phone. It's off the hook, but what? The line's been disconnected for years. There's no way she could have called from here. A cold wave of fear washed over me. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there. The woman, her terrified whispers, the address. It didn't make any sense. The line had been disconnected long before the call was made, and yet I had heard her, clear as day, pleading for help. I stayed on the line, listening to the static, waiting for something, anything, to make sense. But there was nothing. Just the empty house, the phone lying on the floor, and the chilling realization that I had spoken to someone, or something, that shouldn't have been able to call me. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that I moved on. But the truth is, that call haunts me. I still hear her voice sometimes, late at night when the lines are quiet. I wonder if she's still out there, trapped in that house, trying to reach out to anyone who will listen. And I wonder if she called again, would I even pick up? The vanishing train. Working the late shift as a subway operator in a city that never sleeps, you get used to the routine. Dimly lit tunnels, the rhythmic clatter of the tracks, and the quiet hum of the near-empty cars as you make your way through the underground maze. The stillness of the night shift can be both a blessing and a curse. But one night, what was supposed to be just another uneventful run turned into something I still can't explain. It was a little past midnight, and my train had only a handful of passengers, a couple of tired office workers, a man in a hoodie slumped in his seat, and an older woman clutching a shopping bag. They were scattered across the cars, lost in their own worlds, just like any other night. The train moved smoothly through the tunnels, the city's lights flickering in and out of view as we sped along. We entered one of the longer tunnels, one where the darkness seemed to stretch on forever. The kind of tunnel that always made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, though I never understood why. About halfway through, the lights in the cars flickered, a quick, sudden blink like they always did. But this time, when the lights came back on, something was different. The train was completely silent. At first, I didn't notice it, lost in my thoughts as I guided the train through the darkness. But then it hit me. There was no sound of rustling papers, no quiet conversations, no footsteps on the metal floor. The only sound was the train itself, the hum of the engine and the clatter of the wheels on the tracks. I glanced up at the monitors in front of me, which showed the interior of each car. My heart skipped a beat. The seats were empty, every single one. The passengers were gone. I quickly scanned the monitors again, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The man in the hoodie, the office workers, the old woman, they had all vanished, leaving behind only their belongings. A briefcase was sitting on a seat, a shopping bag on the floor, a half-finished coffee cup rolling slowly with the train's movement. But there was no sign of the people who had been holding them. I brought the train to a stop at the next station, my mind racing. Maybe they had all gotten off at the last stop and I hadn't noticed. Maybe I was more tired than I realized. But as I pulled the train into the station, a wave of dread washed over me. The platform was empty. No one was there. Not a single passenger. I stepped out of the operator's cabin, my eyes scanning the cars as I walked through them. The doors had opened, the lights were on, but the train was completely deserted. The belongings were still there, an open laptop on a seat, a newspaper folded on a bench. But the people had vanished without a trace. My mind was spinning as I tried to make sense of it. I checked the security footage from the tunnel, but there was nothing unusual, just the flicker of the lights. And then, nothing. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. I called it in, reported the incident, and soon the station was swarming with transit police and investigators. They combed through the train, checked every nook and cranny, but they found nothing. No sign of a struggle, no evidence that anyone had ever been there except for the abandoned belongings. The passengers were reported missing the next day. Their families were distraught, but no one could explain what had happened. The case made headlines for a few days, then quietly faded away, just like the people on my train. No trace of them was ever found. It was as if they had simply been erased from existence. The subway company conducted an internal investigation, but nothing came of it. The official explanation was that the passengers must have somehow left the train without being seen. But I knew the truth. I had been there. I had seen the empty seats, the forgotten belongings, the eerie silence that still haunts me to this day. I still work the late shift, but every time we enter that tunnel, I can't help but hold my breath, waiting for the lights to flicker again, waiting to see if it will happen once more. And every night, I wonder what became of those passengers, where they went, or if they're still out there, somewhere, lost in the darkness of the underground. The Ghost in the Warehouse. Working the night shift in a massive warehouse can be eerie at the best of times, but for the most part, I've gotten used to the quiet and the dimly lit aisles. The warehouse is enormous. Rows upon rows of shelves stacked high with boxes and equipment, the kind of place where you can easily lose yourself if you're not careful. My job is to monitor the inventory overnight, make sure everything is where it should be, and that no one's snooping around where they shouldn't be. It's routine work, but it pays well, and usually, nothing happens. Usually. One night, though, things started to get strange. It was around 2 a.m., and I was doing my rounds, walking the aisles with my flashlight in hand. The warehouse was silent, except for the distant hum of the air conditioning system and the occasional creak of the building settling. I had just finished checking one of the far corners of the warehouse when I noticed something odd. One of the boxes on a shelf had moved. At first I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I hadn't noticed it earlier, but as I stood there staring at the shelf, I saw it again. The box slid a few inches to the left, completely on its own. My first thought was that the shelf was uneven, or that the floor might be slanted, causing the box to move. But when I checked, everything seemed normal. The floor was flat, the shelf sturdy. There was no reason for the box to be shifting like that. I shook it off, trying to convince myself that I was just tired, that maybe I hadn't seen what I thought I had. But then it happened again. A different box, this time on a shelf a few rows down, moved just as I walked past. It wasn't a slow slide like before. This box jerked sharply to the side as if someone had pushed it. My heart started to race as I shined my flashlight down the aisle, but there was no one there. The warehouse was empty, as it should be. I continued my rounds, feeling increasingly uneasy. As I made my way through the aisles, I kept noticing little things out of place. Tools that had been left lying on the floor, boxes that had been stacked differently from how I'd seen them earlier. It was like someone, or something, was moving things around when I wasn't looking. Finally, I decided to check the security footage. The warehouse had cameras installed in various locations, and I hoped that maybe they'd show what was going on. I went back to the small office near the entrance, where the monitors were set up, and started scrolling through the footage from the past hour. At first, everything looked normal, just empty aisles and rows of shelves. But then, as I fast-forwarded, I saw it. A shadowy figure moving between the shelves, barely more than a dark blur on the screen. It was quick, almost too quick to catch, but it was definitely there. I rewound the footage, watching it again and again, but no matter how many times I played it back, I couldn't make out any details. The figure was just a shadow, flitting through the aisles like a ghost. My stomach dropped as I realized that whatever it was, it had been following me. The figure appeared in the aisles I had just walked through, always just out of sight, always moving right behind me. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck as I watched the footage, feeling more and more like I was being watched. I decided to search the warehouse again, this time with more urgency. I grabbed my flashlight and headed back into the aisles, my heart pounding in my chest. I walked slowly, carefully, listening for any sound, any sign of movement. But the warehouse was silent, the air thick with tension. I checked every corner, every row, but there was nothing. No one was there. The only sound was the echo of my own footsteps and the distant hum of the building. I was alone. But as I turned to head back to the office, I saw it. Out of the corner of my eye, just a flash of movement. I spun around, shining my flashlight down the aisle, but it was gone. The shadowy figure had disappeared, leaving me standing there, alone in the dark. I didn't sleep that morning when I finally got home. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone in that warehouse, that something was there with me, watching me, moving things around when I wasn't looking. I reviewed the footage again, but the figure never appeared on the cameras after that night. The boxes stopped moving, the tools stayed in place, and the warehouse was quiet once more. But every time I walk those aisles now, I can't help but feel a cold shiver run down my spine. I know what I saw, and I know that something was there. And even though the warehouse seems normal now, I can't shake the feeling that whatever it was, it's still out there, waiting in the shadows, just out of sight.